Imagine cheering for a team that was born in the 21st century and, in less than a decade, already had historic moments to tell. That's the Houston Texans. But do you really know the trajectory of this franchise in its early years? Today, we're going to revisit the most memorable moments of the team from its foundation until 2009, including curiosities that even the most die-hard fans might not know. Did you know that the Texans won their first official game against none other than the Dallas Cowboys? Or that the franchise's first big star almost ended up on another team? So, stay tuned until the end because this journey through the Texans' history is packed with incredible facts. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more NFL content. Now, let's get to the first fun fact. Number 1. The birth of the Texans. The NFL returns to Houston. If you were a football fan in the 90s, you know that Houston had a team before the Texans. The Oilers represented the city for more than 3 decades, but in 1997, they moved to Tennessee, leaving a void in the hearts of their fans. The NFL knew that Houston was still a major market for the sport, and that's when the idea of bringing a new franchise to the city was born. The process wasn't simple. Originally, the NFL wanted a new team in Los Angeles, but issues with stadiums and investments paved the way for Houston. In 1999, billionaire Bob McNair secured the expansion rights by paying a record fee of $700 million to bring the team into the league. And so, on October 6, 1999, the Houston Texans were officially announced as the NFL's 32nd franchise. But the team still needed a name. Several options were considered, such as Apollos, Wildcatters, and Stallions. However, in 2000, McNair revealed that the chosen name would be Houston Texans, representing the spirit and identity of the state of Texas. With a name in place, the franchise began to take shape. Reliant Stadium, now NRG Stadium, was built to be the team's home and became the first NFL stadium with a retractable roof. The NFL's return to Houston was officially set. But now came the next challenge: building a competitive team from scratch. Number 2. The first draft in franchise history. Building a team from scratch is no easy task, and the Texans faced their first big test in the 2002 NFL Draft. As an expansion franchise, Houston had the first overall pick and a crucial decision to make: which player would become the face of the team? At the time, the Texans had several options. Some believed the team should select quarterback David Carr from Fresno State, while others argued that the franchise should go for Julius Peppers, a dominant pass rusher from North Carolina. In the end, head coach Dom Capers and the front office chose Carr, seeing him as the future of the franchise. The problem? He joined a team that was still being built from the ground up, with a weak offensive line. The result? David Carr was sacked 76 times in his rookie season, an NFL record that still stands today. This severely impacted his development and prevented him from becoming the franchise quarterback Houston had hoped for. Besides Carr, the Texans also selected players like guard Chester Pitts and tight end Jabber Gaffney, who became key pieces in the offense. But overall, the 2002 draft highlighted how tough it would be for Houston to compete right away. The Texans' first roster included several veterans acquired through the expansion draft, but few truly talented players. This meant that the early seasons would be filled with struggles for the fans. However, despite the difficulties, the franchise's official debut turned out to be a spectacular moment. Number 3. The official NFL debut, an unforgettable start. Every new NFL franchise dreams of a memorable start, but few teams have had as impactful a debut as the Houston Texans. On September 8, 2002, in a packed Reliant Stadium, Houston faced none other than the Dallas Cowboys in the highly anticipated Battle of Texas. The Cowboys were the overwhelming favorites. After all, the Texans were a brand new team going up against one of the most storied franchises in the league. But what happened that night caught everyone by surprise. On the very first offensive drive in franchise history, David Carr threw a 19-yard touchdown pass to Billy Miller, sending the crowd into a frenzy. That play went down in the record books as the first touchdown in Texans history. The Texans' defense, led by head coach Dom Capers, played with incredible intensity, constantly pressuring Cowboys quarterback Quincy Carter. In the fourth quarter, Houston sealed the victory with a fumble recovery in the end zone, closing out the game with a 19-10 win. This victory was historic for several reasons. The Texans became only the second expansion franchise in the modern era to win their debut game. The first was the Minnesota Vikings in 1961. It was the first and only time an NFL team won its first ever game against the Cowboys. Houston fans finally got their revenge after years without professional football in the city. Despite this epic beginning, the 2002 season would not be an easy one. But at that moment, none of that mattered. The Texans had arrived in the NFL in style. Now, the challenge was to turn that excitement into a competitive team. And as we'll see in the next chapter, that would take a few years. Number 4. The early years of struggles and growth. Despite their epic victory against the Cowboys in their debut, reality quickly set in for the Houston Texans. Like any new franchise, Houston struggled to establish itself in the NFL. Their first season ended with a 4-12 record, making it clear that there was still a long road ahead. The biggest issue? The offensive line. Quarterback David Carr, chosen to lead the team, suffered a staggering 76 sacks, an all-time NFL record. He spent more time on the ground than throwing the ball, which severely impacted his development. Additionally, the Texans roster was composed of expansion draft picks and a few rookies, meaning there was a lack of depth and talent in several key positions. While the defense was competitive, the offense struggled to put points on the board. In the following years, history repeated itself. In 2003, the team showed slight improvement, finishing 5-11, offering small signs of progress. In 2004, with the arrival of wide receiver Andre Johnson, Houston seemed to be heading in the right direction, achieving a 7-9 record, their best season so far. But any hopes of continued growth were crushed in 2005, when the Texans finished with the worst record in the NFL, 2-14. This disastrous season led to the firing of head coach Dom Capers and general manager Charlie Casserly. The team needed a new direction. In 2006, the Texans hired Gary Kubiak as head coach, a former offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, who brought fresh ideas to the offense. Despite the ups and downs, the Texans' early years served as a learning experience. The team was slowly shaping its identity and gradually preparing to compete at a higher level in the league. Number 5. Andre Johnson, the first true icon of the team. If there's one name that defined the early years of the Houston Texans, it's Andre Johnson. The wide receiver was selected 3rd overall in the 2003 NFL Draft out of the University of Miami and quickly became the franchise's biggest star. From the start, Johnson proved he was special. Combining speed, strength, and reliable hands, he stood out on a team that was still struggling to be competitive. Even without an elite quarterback throwing to him, Andre racked up receptions and yards like few others in the league. His impact was immediate. By his second season in 2004, he recorded 1,142 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, earning his first Pro Bowl selection. And that was just the beginning. Between 2003 and 2009, Andre Johnson established himself as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, leading the league in receiving yards in 2008 and 2009. In 2009, he put up a staggering 1,569 yards and 9 touchdowns, earning a first-team All-Pro selection. But what truly made Johnson special was his loyalty to the Texans. At a time when many players would have left a rebuilding team, he stayed and helped the franchise grow. His work ethic and dominance on the field made him the first true face of the franchise. Beyond his numbers, Andre Johnson created iconic moments, including his legendary fight with Cortland Finnegan in 2010, proving that he wouldn't back down from anyone. Even without an elite quarterback in his early years, Johnson became one of the greatest receivers of his generation. And with him, the Texans began earning respect in the NFL. But Houston wanted more than just a great wide receiver, they needed a true rival. And that's exactly what they found in the Dallas Cowboys. Number 6. The rivalry with the Cowboys, the Battle of Texas. In football, some rivalries develop naturally, while others are shaped by circumstance. In the case of the Battle of Texas, the tension between the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys was inevitable. After all, Texas had always been dominated by the Cowboys, and the Texans arrived to challenge that supremacy. The rivalry began with a bang in 2002, when the Texans shocked the world by defeating the Cowboys 19-10 in their first-ever game. That victory was a major upset for Cowboys fans, who never expected to lose to a brand-new team. Despite that initial triumph, the Texans still had a lot to prove. Over the years, the rivalry intensified whenever the two teams faced off, whether in the preseason, where matchups became common, or in the rare regular season meetings. Even though the Cowboys have a much richer history of success, Texans fans always view these matchups as an opportunity to prove that Houston can also be a powerhouse in the state. Texas doesn't belong to Dallas alone. Beyond state pride, this rivalry has been filled with memorable moments, such as the 2006 game, where the Cowboys dominated with a 34-6 victory, or Houston's revenge in 2010, when the Texans won 23-7 in a preseason battle that fired up their fanbase. While the Cowboys still have a larger fanbase, the Texans have carved out their own identity and place in Texas football. The Battle of Texas may not be the biggest rivalry in the NFL, but for Houston fans, beating Dallas always feels special. Number 7. The first Pro Bowler in franchise history. Every NFL franchise dreams of the day when its elite players will represent the team in the Pro Bowl, the league's all-star game. For the Houston Texans, that moment arrived in 2004, when Andre Johnson was selected for his first Pro Bowl appearance. In just his second NFL season, Johnson proved he was a special talent. He racked up 1,142 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, standing out even in an offense that was still developing. His combination of speed, strength, and reliable hands made him an indispensable weapon for the team. Johnson's Pro Bowl selection wasn't just a personal achievement, it was also a major milestone for the young Texans franchise. Up to that point, Houston had few accomplishments to celebrate, but having one of its players named among the league's best signaled that the team was headed in the right direction. And Johnson didn't stop there. He continued to improve, becoming a regular at the Pro Bowl, earning selections again in 2006, 2008, and 2009. His performance helped elevate the Texans' reputation, making them a team that commanded more respect in the NFL. Additionally, Johnson's success inspired other Texans players to strive for the same recognition. In the following years, stars like Mario Williams and DeMeco Ryans would also represent Houston in the Pro Bowl. Andre Johnson's Pro Bowl presence was a clear sign that the Texans were evolving, no longer just an expansion team, but a franchise building a competitive identity. However, to take the next step, they needed to strengthen their defense, and that's where Mario Williams comes into the picture. Number 8. The evolution of the defense and the impact of Mario Williams. While the Texans initially focused on offense with David Carr and Andre Johnson, by 2006, the franchise decided it was time to strengthen the defense. That led to one of the most surprising decisions in NFL draft history. Instead of selecting running back Reggie Bush or quarterback Vince Young, Houston used the first overall pick to draft defensive end Mario Williams. At the time, the decision was heavily criticized. Many fans expected the Texans to pick Bush, who was seen as a generational talent coming out of USC. However, Houston's front office believed Williams could be a defensive cornerstone for years to come. At first, the move looked like a mistake. As a rookie, Williams struggled, recording just 4.5 sacks, while Bush helped the Saints reach the playoffs. But over time, the narrative changed. Starting in 2007, Williams began proving why he was the number 1 pick. He had a dominant season, racking up 14 sacks, a franchise record at the time. He continued to play at a high level in the following years, earning Pro Bowl selections in 2008 and 2009. With his combination of size, speed, and strength, Mario Williams became a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. He played a key role in transforming the Texans' defense from a liability into a respectable unit. Although his time in Houston ended in 2011 when he signed with the Buffalo Bills, his impact was undeniable. He helped establish a new defensive mindset for the franchise, laying the groundwork for future superstars like J.J. Watt, who would arrive years later to take the Texans' defense to another level. Number 9. The year 2009, the franchise's first winning record. Since their inception, the Houston Texans spent years trying to establish themselves as a competitive team in the NFL. Season after season, they kept falling short, unable to achieve a winning record. That all changed in 2009, when Houston finally broke that barrier. Under head coach Gary Kubiak, the Texans entered the season with high expectations. They already had a strong offense led by Matt Schaub, Andre Johnson, and Owen Daniels, along with a more solid defense featuring players like Mario Williams and DeMeco Ryans. The season started with ups and downs. Houston alternated between wins and losses, and at one point, they stood at 5-7, making it seem like they would once again fall below .500. But then, something changed. The Texans went on a 4-game winning streak, capped off by a huge victory against the New England Patriots in Week 17, securing a final record of 9-7. This was a historic moment for the franchise. For the first time, the Texans finished a season with more wins than losses. Andre Johnson had a phenomenal year, leading the NFL in receiving yards for the second straight season, while Matt Schaub had his best season yet, throwing for over 4,700 yards. Unfortunately, despite their winning record, Houston missed the playoffs, as other teams held the necessary tiebreakers. Still, 2009 marked a major step forward for the franchise, proving that the Texans were getting closer to becoming a real force in the NFL. Number 10. The legacy built by 2009 and a promising future. The early years of an NFL franchise are never easy, and the Houston Texans were no exception. From the start, the team had to overcome numerous challenges, including a roster under construction, a weak offensive line, and a lack of experience in critical games. However, over the years, Houston began to shape its identity. Looking at the period from 2002 to 2009, the Texans evolved from a team with no tradition into a franchise with recognized stars in the league. Andre Johnson emerged as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Mario Williams proved his worth as a dominant pass rusher, and players like DeMeco Ryans and Matt Schaub brought stability to both defense and offense. The defining moment of this era was the 2009 season, when the Texans finally finished with a winning record, 9-7. Though they fell short of the playoffs, this campaign proved that the team was heading in the right direction. Houston was no longer just an expansion team, it was a real competitor, ready to go toe-to-toe with the NFL's giants. The foundation built over these years prepared the Texans for the new decade, where they would finally achieve their first division title in 2011 and begin to establish themselves as a consistent playoff contender. The story of the Texans from 2002 to 2009 was filled with ups and downs, but it was essential in shaping the franchise we know today. From their historic debut win against the Cowboys to their first winning season, each moment helped Houston evolve from a new expansion team into a legitimate force in the NFL. For the fans, this journey carried a special meaning. Those who followed the team from the beginning witnessed its growth, struggles, and triumphs, making every victory even more rewarding. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these moments was the most memorable? Were you a fan of the Texans during this era, or did you discover the team later? Drop a comment and join the discussion. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any NFL content. See you in the next video.